that I had been asked to turn in after reviewing that park for last meeting. And I want that to get in the record. Because
So-
otherwise, we don't even know we did any, I mean, so I
Is
don't know
that
if that
for
could be
last
under.
minute? That's would be in our minutes from, we're just in approval of agenda right now.
Right.
Well, she wants to add an item to the
Oh,
agenda.
okay.
Yeah, it wasn't
That's what
in the
she's
minutes, it wasn't on the last, so
Yeah,
that's why. So
Okay.
I don't know where it would go under. Old business?
we'll put it under 7A.
Okay. New business?
Where would you do it under 7A?
I actually have it completed. I didn't get it completed in time to be included into the
Oh,
agenda.
awesome.
So it'll be verbal. I can address
You're
it in
gonna address
staff
it?
reports.
Do you want to do it in staff reports instead?
perfect.
Okay, we'll do it in staff reports then, if that's all right.
Excellent.
At the end. Okay, perfect.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
I don't know if it should be added into here, but just go over what happened at the Night to Unite.
Sure.
Just, yeah,
Review.
We can do
the-
it under committee reports.
okay.
At the end there's, next to staff
So night
reports.
to unite,
Yeah.
and then the staff reports. We'll make sure that that checklist goes. Okay. Anything else from anybody? All right. Can we get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Deanne?
I'll second.
Diane? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right. Next is open forum. I don't see anybody here for attendance to address us tonight, so we'll just keep moving along. We've got several minutes to approve here. So the first one is for 6A is the June 8th Park and Rec Committee meeting minutes. We'll need a motion to, I was not at that one, so, but had been brought up to speed on it, but anybody make a motion for the meeting minutes from that June 8th meeting?
I'll make the move to approve the minutes, but I left early to go to the Dairy Queen with my granddaughter.
For that meeting?
But I'll make the motion.
Okay. Diane?
I can second that.
All right, Deanne? Any discussion? Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries for June 8th. The next one was minutes for 6B for July 13th, our committee meeting minutes, our official meeting time.
I'll make the motion to approve the July 13th regular meeting minutes.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Any discussion? Okay, those approve, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. 6C, so this is from our workshop minutes, where we were looking at the master plan and digging into that some after our regular meeting. Let's see. I have a motion for that.
I'll make the motion to approve the workshop minutes of July 13th.
Okay,
Second.
all right. Any discussion? I guess I had one question on this. If there's any changes that we would like to see, that we can do that during our workshop this evening, right?
If you want to make changes to the
To
minutes,
the-
or?
Not to the minutes, to the master plan.
Of course, yeah.
Okay,
We can
perfect.
do that at any time you guys like during the
Okay.
workshop, yeah. Or we can do it when we get into the item. Either
Okay,
way.
sounds good.
Sure.
One more question. So is this reflective of all the wording changes we made?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We can get into that in just 2 seconds. Let's get through the minutes in a second, because I want to explain that anyways.
Okay. So the minutes part of it is okay? Yep. All right, those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. I think that's the fastest we've ever. All right, Number 7 is new business. I don't think we had anything, so 8 is old business.
Okay, so 8A is the master plan section 1 update that we talked about last time we were in the workshop. Obviously, we're going to do workshop number 2 once we're done here tonight. But I thought I would take a minute to just run you guys through the changes that I made based upon your comments last time. I know you guys had asked for a red line version. I didn't provide you this time because it was a lot of changes. And when I looked at the red line, it was basically illegible, just because there was so much red based upon everything kind of going on. So I figured with the workshop, we got the original one. With this one, we got the new one, so we can kind of compare them as we go.
Okay.
So we went through and I implemented a lot of the language changes. You'll also notice I kind of prettied it up a lot because I was sitting there and I kind of wanted it, to look a little more standardized and look a little nicer compared to what we kind of had before. Shifted through some stuff. Obviously, the authorship page had to change because new members, new people, new staff. Basically, everybody was brand new going through it. And just updated some things there. Now, the table of contents here, you'll see a lot of stuff got condensed down and shifted out. We got rid of the process section, we got rid of the community input section, we got rid of all those general sections that we had before. I condensed them down into a history and development section, like we had talked about last time, which is lined out there, and sort of shifted down a timeline of regular events like we had talked about as well. That was the schedule that you guys said you had wanted to see towards the top.
Yeah, like a timeline.
Yeah, like a timeline of some time. Obviously, not final yet because I don't have any of the dates finalized, and I wanted to talk to you guys today about what things you might want to see more specifically in that. But we'll get to that in a minute. So, as I shift down here, and obviously you can see it's the same exact sort of formal format as it was before. So, obviously, I went through based upon the notes that you guys gave that I actually have in front of me written down here and shored up the mission statement a bit, removed that last sentence. You'll notice throughout the entire thing, if you compare it, I also kind of shifted the tenses a lot. The old master plan, and I suspect this is something I'm going to have to do for the entire master plan now, was kind of very passive language. And was kind of a little wordy. It got really confusing at a couple points, and I was kind of like, oh, I don't like that. So I ended up shifting most of it to active language, and just cleaning it up and like I said, shoring it up a bunch. So the mission statement is mostly unchanged. It's basically the same thing, just with that last sentence removed, as we had talked about. Objectives is where you guys really first started to kind of get into it and wanted to see some major shifting. Obviously, there was a whole sentence in the middle there that was concerned about, Breezy Point's Parks and Recreation Committee has developed this Parks, Trails, and Open Space Master Plan and some other stuff that I pulled out at your guys' request, cleaned up, and then very quickly started to condense things down. Now, I will say I did shift some stuff from the process section up into the objectives here, just because in the old process section there was some things that were really probably more objective-y based, that were like goals that were set, but they were kind of down there and it was a little mixed up. So you'll notice in the original plan there was only, I think, like 3 bullet points here.
Yeah.
Now you've got 4. So those 3 bullet points are very similar to the old bullets point that were there, but I also added the additional bullet point about communication, because you guys had said you wanted to add a bullet point there for that, and kind of fuse that with the sort of bullet point stuff that was in the process section here. Obviously, much of the next section here is sort of a same language from the last one. I just generalized the info down a lot, kind of made it easier to read, condensed things in, cleaned up the quotation there and whatnot. Mostly readability. Not too many changes were actually made here. The major change that happened at the end here was the master plan is a living document bit here, saying that you guys intend to review it, evaluate it, refine it, that kind of stuff every 5 years or so, to match it with the parks and the city's comprehensive plan according to whatever updates we do there. Obviously, history and development of the parks, trails, and open space master plan is a big section. That was what you guys had requested for, the process section, the community input section, some of the end stuff over here, and then that entire section in the back that was, ideas generated through the master plan. Like I said, I shifted a little bit of that around. Some of that stuff kind of got touched up to the front, but I took through and I kind of just took a bit of a weed whacker and summarized that whole section, made what I think is a pretty comprehensive history based upon the information that was written there. If you guys want to give it a read through at some point or let me know what you think, I can add things or remove things. If you want things changed out, I can easily do that. And then kind of just cleaned up the final section there on preserving and allowing and improving stuff. On the section on the original one, it was kind of a bit skimpy, I guess, or kind of a little confusing the way that it was written with that language. So I turned those 3 sections at the end there into bullet points and kind of cleaned them up a bit based upon what I had seen in the rest of the sections and kind of tried to extrapolate out a touch. Kind of, again, making sure that the historical section was comprehensive and that it was legible and understandable and whatnot. And obviously, last section here is the timeline of regular events. So you guys had said that you had wanted to get a timeline in there of events that might be of interest. Based upon our conversations, I set it up for now as the county announcement for tax forfeiture lots, some budget calendar approval stuff here, your guys' budget approval, the tax forfeiture lot auction, and then budget workshop and the final budget approval. Obviously, things can be added or removed to that based upon what you guys think you might like to see. It's really up to you. Obviously, as well, I will say this is just the first pass of the first section. If you guys want to make any changes, we can easily make changes at this point. We're not going to actually approve the final version until we're done with the workshops way later in the year, probably towards the end of this year. So this is like the first pass. If you have any thoughts or anything you'd like to say about it, let me know what you'd like to see.
Yeah, I do. I'm not crazy about the community center being added in here. Like I said, I've gotten a lot of petitions signed, and not one person wanted it until, they seemed like they liked it until they said, well, it's going to cost $6 to $7 million. Then no one wanted it. And I think I've said this before, every community center put up in the last 25 years in this country, or in the Midwest at least, dependent on the community for 35 to 90% of its budget. It'll be a disaster for the taxpayers. So I don't see why we even should include that in there, or a swimming pool. I know that's in the plans for the new building, that they're going to put a footprint down for that stuff, which I'm totally against that, personally.
So are you talking about the last bullet point on
Yes.
page 12?
Yes, I am.
Okay. They have simply says they've been proposed. It's not a going to happen kind of a thing.
Well, that's what they
But-
said about the disc golf course expansion too, and all of a sudden it was here. So I don't even like seeing it there.
Okay.
Well, it is
Any other
proposed, it's
discussion?
reality, and we're having community input on it right now, so it's not like it isn't happening.
And I
As
just
far
told
as
you, I
getting
had 61
input.
signatures that were against it.
That doesn't matter, we're still getting public input on it right now, so it's not like you can wish it away.
Where are we
It's
getting public input from?
right out in the lobby.
No, that's for the.
That's for the city hall. This is for
Well-
a separate community center
A
building.
Talking about
Possibility of
part of that
expansion,
within there
though.
too, though.
Yeah.
That's talked about within there as well.
So if I may interject for 1 second here. The community center itself, Mr. Toft is correct. We're not actually receiving like direct input on the community center right this second. Part of what has been talked about though, and that people have been talking about, that I've gotten from people walking in and just talking to people and that we've received in comments, are people saying that they would like us to consider the community center as a part of City Hall. And I will say as well, based upon conversations that we had had with the city council in the last meeting, in the last regular meeting, that was something they had talked about as well. Now, it's not a direct community center, but they had talked about having pool, fitness center, gymnasium, community room, those sorts of things as add alternates that would be added on to the construction of City Hall if they were to go forward with that, which would be consistent with some comment we have received in the office here and would be consistent with what people had talked about in the past. That being said, we haven't received like we're not running, like right this second, we're not running a round of comments on the community center. We have run a round of comments on the community center in the past with the old community center study that happened prior to my arrival. But we're not running one right this second.
Is there a way that we could even, I mean, maybe it just says the possibility of, you know, I don't know. They are things that have been in our discussions. Diane?
I am as opposed as you are to it. I am double or triple in favor of it. This has been talked about for decades, literally decades. It's been at the Ice Arena when we did that comp plan, it was discussed there. It's something that has been like on our horizon for a while. We do not spend money. Parks does not spend money. We recommend to council. They spend money.
Right.
We dream the dreams, put it to them and say, this is what we think would be nice. This would be an asset to the community. This would benefit people. It would bring people together. It would be also a pretty darn good place if there were a storm and we needed to take shelter. If we had a big gymnasium type place, you see when there's disasters and you always see all these beds lined up in some kind of gym, we would have a kitchen there.
You know how much it
where you
costs to
could
maintain a
feed
pool
people.
in a month?
I
You know how
don't-
much it costs?
It's, Bill,
You know how much it costs? Do you have any
Bill,
idea?
everything
Can we-
does not come down to dollars at this moment. This is the.
Diane.
I hate to interrupt you guys, but we can't, we could argue until the sun goes down and I'm not gonna I'm sorry to interrupt, but is there a way to find a medium way of having some language in there that could be a possibility of including a community center? It doesn't mean it's going to be there, but
I'm fine with proposed improvements including, I mean, the way it's written is it's a proposal. And that doesn't mean, that's just it. That's about as vague as you can get. And we're not doing anything. And if we do dream of it, then like she said, it goes to the council. They spend the money.
And if it is not in here.
Yeah.
If it's not in
It's
our
gone.
plan.
Yeah.
We can't, and we get, somebody drops $10 million on us, we can't go for
Yeah.
a community center.
And this
because
isn't
we're
our-
not directed by our plan to look at it.
right, and this also isn't our mapped out plan, it's just
Saying, right.
mentioning it. Can we hear from all of our other committee members?
Maybe to explore improvements.
Possible
such as-
improvements, maybe.
Such as community center, pool, fitness center, maybe, I don't know, that's all inclusive of a community center, or, you know,
Officer Garcia.
Can I just get a point of clarification? Because
I didn't realize he was in.
this is, the bullet point we're talking about, it's under the heading of history of development of parks, and it follows the statement that, essentially that says, from previous sessions, the Parks and Recreation Committee learned people chose to live in Breezy Point for.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Over here. Sorry, I just want to make sure you picked up.
Just before we get too much into discussion, which I think is absolutely warranted, don't get me wrong, but really the heading that we're talking about, a bullet point under, is just a recap of the history of
very true.
what happened in previous
That's a good point, thank you for,
previous
yeah.
park committees. So it's really just a statement of what has been discussed, and doesn't have to be a guiding force. It's just a recap of what has happened, the way I understand it.
Deanne?
I was also wondering then, because the gardens have also been discussed, should that be added in there as community center and then community garden also? Are we listing out specific things that our committee has talked about in the past?
And the garden is actually more of a newer one, so I don't know
Right.
if that would fit under history or more, under
Well,
the history.
The document, I will say, is kind of really, to a degree, whatever you guys want it to be. The community garden is more recent, that's true. I mean, it has been talked about at past meetings. If you guys wanted to include that as a sort of bullet point or under a section, we could do that. I will say, just to kind of follow up a little bit on what you had said, Madam Chair, it's not that you can't do other things that aren't in your master plan, but it is kind of true that you want to try to follow your master plan kind of as best you can, because your master plan informs your CIP, and your CIP is more of your actual, I guess, tactical on the ground
Action.
document
Yep.
that's actionable, that would be implemented by like Supervisor Zierden and by staff and whatnot.
Okay.
So it doesn't necessarily need to be in this section. We could add community garden under parks if you guys would like. We could add a community center under parks if you'd rather move it there, or we can keep it here, or we can really kind of do anything you want. It's more just an issue of linguistics, I suppose, at that point, if you're comfortable with it under that bullet point, or if you'd like to see it somewhere
Well,
else or just removed, or.
There's some spots that have, proposed improvements in other sections and things like that. I think that would be a perfect place to add the garden into there if that's, I appreciate Officer Garcia. This is the subheading of history. So this is an accurate summary of history, I believe.
Madam Chair, if I can just say one more thing, and I'll let all this go. I just looked through the previous master plan. There was one statement in there about this golf course expansion. So just because something's not in here doesn't mean it can't be voted on by the public or put into operation like Mr. Ike said.
But we did vote for it.
Well, no one
Okay.
can tell me the date when I asked you.
Since this is
several meetings.
history and we're putting, I could see, like Deanna said, just maybe making a separate bullet point even and saying in 2022, we just started discussing a community garden, because it's been at least a year, if not two, that you've proposed that. So we could say 21 or 22 bullet point, adding a community garden. So then that's history. That's part of our history, that we've been talking about it, and now actually the packet got sent to council.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I don't know if people, this committee is mostly new people, mostly. I don't know if they realize, though, that we got so into this community center that we took field trips to four community centers in the area, spoke with their managers, looked at their facilities. We had potential building layout drawn up. I mean, this thing is not just going to go away. The work has been done on this already. This is something we were creeping slowly towards.
Yes, Deanna.
I think that you're just making a good point of that if we're talking about the history, that knowing that has
Yes,
been
we had-
brought up,
I mean,
then this is an appropriate place to have that.
It's more than just a statement on paper. There was actual visits and work done and planning done with consultants. It is not just something that's written on a piece of paper that's someone's, imagined thing.
So I wonder if we could add that word planning in there. Proposed improvements include planning for future community center.
Okay.
If that
So
pulls
planning
in a
for-
little bit more, it's a little less vague, it's more specific of what was actually done.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, proposed improvements included plan.
Daniel, did you
know.
have record of that Patrick went on all those expeditions too and toured it?
It's in the
Yes,
packet.
It's all,
Okay.
and it's still up, it is still a discussion on city council. I was there Monday night, and a possibility. So it's not, don't worry, that it's dead in the water.
It's still viable.
You could change the proposed improvements to say previously discussed.
Yeah.
It's been discussed.
History. I mean, everything that we're talking about isn't even a part of this, right? I mean, we're just looking at history, the things we're talking, and how it should be worded in here, correct?
And it can be added in other
Also had
spaces.
library should be in there too.
The what?
Library, we toured the Cross Lake Library as part of a community center.
All of that would be
Weight
part
room,
of it,
all
wouldn't
that
it?
stuff.
Okay.
So library'd be another,
I will say that's a little, as it was, sorry, I'm just, so it was explored as a part of the community center? Okay. I'm thinking now, just the way this is going, maybe it would be easier to just say, like Councilman Moromley said, maybe change the language a little bit. Previously discussed including a community center that included those elements, throw the library in there. And then maybe add another bullet point about the community garden
Yeah.
I'm hearing.
sounds good.
I would date it, like you
Yep.
have some of the other things that were
Yes.
dated.
Okay,
So
I can try.
we do know
Yeah, I
that
can-
it's a more recent thing. It
Yes.
wasn't from 2011,
Yes.
because that's the last date that was,
Okay.
but 2022.
Okay.
And the plan was formally submitted in 2023.
Okay.
The garden plan?
Yeah, this year. We submitted the formal plan
you
to
did
this
that.
group.
No, I think
Last
it was last year.
2022.
But I mean to the council, it's given to the council now in 2023. They just got the packet.
Oh, okay.
When did-
I will say,
Why- how
just
did
as
they get a
point,
packet?
to my knowledge, I don't think the council as a body has received. Councilman Maroney, is that?
I might be blending meetings here, but I believe it was only really at the Parks meeting. I've only been on the Parks liaison for this year, and that's when I saw that I think, Joe, you actually had a budget, a plan. David Chansky, Mr. Chansky had like a outline of how long this would take. I want to say it was February, March,
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah.
maybe April.
I don't remember.
But that's when I believe the park committee discussed it. Going in front of the council, I don't believe it has been in front of the council because I don't believe the board here wanted to pursue it at that point.
We were wanting to put it in, I think, part of the comprehensive plan.
In the
We've
CIP.
never approved it and sent it to council.
We
Yeah.
did approve it, yeah.
We did? Did
And
I vote for that?
Angel said David got it sent today. That's what I got today.
But how is,
But that wasn't
Wait.
submitted to the entire council, I don't
It's the
believe.
community garden proposal PDF that we submitted to this group.
Did we
We
vote
didn't
and pass it
to
and
have it
send it
move
up?
forward?
Yeah,
No, the exact vote was to put it into your CIP when we get into consideration on the CIP.
Okay, so-
That was back in the March meeting. Part of the reason we're going through the master plan now is to get ahead of the CIP. We do the master plan. The assumption was we include the community garden in the master plan, then that moves into the CIP, then we develop the community garden as a result of that. That was what the board had voted
I
on.
want to be clear, we have not approved it as a body and sent it up to the council for their approval and beginning the,
No, it is not included in the
getting
budget.
shovels ready.
No, it is not included in the budget.
Okay.
they are just reviewing the overview of what it could be, what we had submitted to all of you. That's what she told me today.
Yeah, I'd look for clarification on that.
Yeah, I would too. Maybe I can reach out to.
I will
Mayors or
say I
in
don't
there.
know 100% what occurred because it sounds like it happened between the mayor and the administrator, but it sounds like the mayor may have reached out to him and requested the packet and he may have delivered it to her as a part of that request, but that wouldn't have gone to the entirety of council, I don't think.
Okay.
That would have just been a private interaction between the mayor and the
She may have requested
administrator.
the details of what was provided to Parks, so what was
I
given
gave
to
that
Parks.
to her. Because she had asked me to ask David to get it out to council.
At this
which I
point, the
did,
council
and it
has
didn't
not
happen.
received it, so,
Okay.
we'll have staff investigate.
Okay, we'll look
But
into
at
it.
this point, it hasn't been passed by the park committee.
We didn't put it into we put it into the CIP, but they're just overviewing the budget, the whole proposal of the garden in general, so it's not just an abstract.
I don't think the
Idea.
park committee has approved that yet.
No, I don't think, I think we wanted it to go into our CIP, but we have not added it to our CIP because we're still digging into the master plan, which guides the CIP.
Right.
Yeah, that's correct.
So we're not there yet. Not that it won't be, just not yet.
Yep. I believe what you guys discussed was back in March, April, whatever month that was, is that you liked the idea of it, you weren't ready to move forward with it, but you wanted to see it incorporated with the parks CIP plan.
I remember that too,
Yeah.
Mike.
Okay.
Or maybe it's not even a Parks and Rec project. Maybe it's a thing on its own, with its own budget and not a park, not out of parks.
Well, we'll see. I
Yeah.
mean, we could. All right.
If I could circle
yeah,
back around.
Go ahead.
back
I
into
was
the
going to
language
say,
here. So-
back to this.
Okay, so then, the hash back out there, I'm hearing, at least for this last section here, change that proposed improvements language to previously discussed. Add a bullet point in the history section here for the community garden, which I can put on just another bullet point underneath that. Is there anything else anybody had
My only other
thoughts
thing
on?
that I had was, on the timeline, I like how you mapped that out. I think the only thing we don't need is the year, because I'd like it to be like, in January, we
yes.
always do this, or
Okay, gotcha.
every May, we always do this. So but I do like that, I appreciate that timeline being in there. That's exactly what, so it's like our guiding.
Okay.
So just next the year, I think is it, but.
I'll remove the year, and I was actually thinking earlier today, I might try to actually make that, assuming that we can get those dates, I might actually try to make that, usually those dates are listed more as like third Thursday in June or something like that.
I think even if
Just
it's just the
generally.
The
month,
month.
like
Or just the
in
month, okay.
January of every year, we'll
I have a
sometime
question
check
about
that.
Because I don't remember when there was tax forfeiture of lots that we discussed that. as a
That's
committee.
right. So we have
really do
actually,
that.
have been wanting to, and we keep missing it.
Okay,
So we've made a timeline, so we make it part of the normal business of,
Just
so
need to
we
make
are
sure
on
it
top
gets
of
out
it,
of the-
ahead of it, I think is correct.
Yeah, that would be correct.
So, yeah, that's why we haven't necessarily seen or done all those things, but we want to be proactive. Yeah,
The
yeah.
letter I got from Crow Wing County is July 11th announcing their tax forfeit land sale on July 28th, and I don't see a July.
Is it twice a year?
The tax forfeit, well, they make the announcement when they make it, and then they do the tax forfeit auction. I think it's once a year, but
Okay.
maybe, Joe, do you know?
Typically, we'll get a crack at, we get to view lots before they go up for the auction. They'll, a lot of times we're looking at stormwater, that sort of thing, area where we need, that's why I review them. Road, if we need them down the road for a road project or something like that. And I believe it's first, if, all local governments, and then it will pass. If it gets through that, then it goes into the later auction. And January does kind of ring a bell when I remember seeing those, so.
So they sent the email out on mid-July, and then the sale was the 28th.
That's probably for
So
public.
maybe that's,
That's probably for the public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
So,
then
so private, we get a different date.
we should maybe request that information from your department in January, just so we can look at it as well.
It can be, I don't see a reason it couldn't be looked at.
Well, it
We
says
probably
right
want a
there.
little further discussion on like the nuts and bolts, because I don't have, like, I'm going off my memory. I would want to firm up dates, the specifics, research that and bring that to probably the next council or your next park meeting, so we could have a, little better discussion about
Finalize that schedule.
the specifics, yeah, because I don't want to, talk about something where I could totally be wrong, which is totally possible. Generally speaking, those tax forfeit lots they're in kind of unusual places, like, there'll be one isolated here or there that,
Sure.
so.
The city has at least one for sale right now, I think, that they bought.
there's a couple,
Yeah.
I saw in like neighborhood
Over in
15
Belgium,
or
or was it
whatever,
Belgium, or-
in our area, there was 3
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, there are several tax forfeit lots just available. I will say the county does handle our actual tax forfeit lot sales, so we don't do it ourselves. And that's pretty standard practice. It's not uncommon, and I wouldn't recommend at this point that we take over tax forfeiture lot sales. That would be I wouldn't want, that would be very, very difficult. I will say, as a result of the last meeting, I did take a look at the tax forfeit lots that were out there in the city, and I pulled them up on GIS. At this point, looking at them, I will say pretty much every lot that's up this year is residential anyways. And it would be up to the council if we were to purchase anything. I just know from staff perspective, I wouldn't recommend purchasing any of those lots because we would much rather they fall into residential and somebody purchases it, maybe tries to put a house on it, does something with it, and it goes into the tax roll rather than us buying up a lot that's squeezed between 4 houses. And is kind of in a weird area. But of course, speaking of next year, who knows what's up next year or what's going to be on there. Obviously all these dates are just placeholders right now. I don't know the exact dates off the top of my head. We have to shore that up, like Joe said. So as time goes on, we'll try to see if we can get those nailed down a little bit better so that we have a clear plan on like, okay, at this meeting, we want to make sure we bring the tax
Bring this
forfeit
forward.
announcement stuff
Yeah.
forward.
Yep, that's the intent of this timeline.
Yeah.
Diane?
One thing I'd like to do with the tax forfeited lots, though, is look at them as maybe wildlife corridors or connecting lots for trails through the city, so we kind of people could maybe walk through the city in places where they maybe don't want to be on the street, and they could like kind of cut through the forest. So
Expand.
and I also think there's a benefit to those for wells and septic systems, because there's room for recharge, and that might end up being a benefit to us all later when we don't have to put in a city sewer system or a city water system because we've compromised too much of our land, and then it can't support them all. So that was something that was brought up prior to Joe, that was brought to our attention, that can happen. Things like that, if you don't have enough area for regular water, penetration.
Well, and I think those are conversations too that we could
But that's
dig
it's
into
referenced-
once we start actively looking at forfeit lots and what would be maybe a
That is
wise.
referenced in the old plan, those issues are referenced in there, that was part of why previously we did look at the tax forfeited lands, and the parks did comment. I don't know when all this stuff went away, but previously we did look at and comment on them, or if they were particularly wet.
Well, and it hasn't gone away. It's still part of our master plan. We just haven't gotten to that section, I believe.
That's kind of the next
that's
one,
one of
isn't
the
it? Or
things.
in the
The-
process,
About-
we will review
Yeah.
parks.
And then I have another comment on the plan elements. There's a reference right under the top 4 bullet points where it talks about the budgeting responsibly for this growth. I object to that. I don't budget. Megan doesn't budget. Council and the administrator budget. We don't. So I don't know that we need to have that in there because we will work with the budget we're given. And then it's also mentioned in near the middle of the page where it talks about the committee will strive to contribute to the attractiveness and viability of the city while planning to utilize the city's monetary resources in a responsible and cohesive manner. No shit. We're supposed to do that, and I don't think it needs to be stated, because I think that's what we've always done and try to do. Work with what we're given and get the most for every buck. I think those should be removed.
Does anyone else have anything to say on that, or?
Further discussion?
Well,
I don't know why you couldn't leave that in, I'm sorry.
Page 11. Page 11.
Where exactly?
Where the quote is, it's the next paragraph down underneath. Yep, at the last sentence.
Up here.
Where,
The last sentence of that middle paragraph after the quote. So the,
Right here, sir. I got it on the screen right here. Right don't highlight it like that. There it goes.
I don't see why we'd have to take that out.
I mean,
It's just saying we're being,
We were being responsible.
we're being
Yeah,
responsible.
I mean, we're stewards of our
Yeah.
citizens.
And is it responsible who determines what's responsible when we're spending money to make a purchase for the playground?
Not us, because
We don't.
We don't do the
spend money,
spending.
But we recommend it.
But aren't we okay, we got $500 for the Night to Unite, right? So we were given money, so whether it's something like
Right,
that,
but
just saying that we're going to be careful with the money.
Someone else determined that $500 was the appropriate amount. We didn't determine the 500 was appropriate.
But how we spent it,
How we recommend spending
right?
it.
Right, we don't spend it, we
It's
only.
the recommend piece
There's
in
very
there.
little money we can just spend on our own.
What if you change the word saying utilize the city's monetary to
Recommending
the city's monetary?
resources. And add the word parks in there. Recommend the city's monetary parks resource, or
Well, he
parks
could-
monetary resources.
Daniel, you
Rec
can
monetary.
massage that sentence into something and we'll look at it again next time, maybe?
Yeah,
Those
absolutely. I can
both
do that.
sentences.
Yeah, okay, so that's the one I've got highlighted right there. And back up for me, where's the other?
Oh, it's there, the paragraph that starts, "This document refines." It's near the bottom of that paragraph, right under communicate and promote the use.
I'm blind, I'm sorry, I wrote it and I don't see it.
It's underneath the bullets. It's the first sentence underneath the bullets up higher. There you go.
General direction established rather than.
I'm not sure.
I don't see money there, though.
I would say the committee will
Budget
Oh, for its budget.
responsibly.
recommend for its budget.
Recommend.
Oh, instead of plan
Plan,
for, recommend. Yeah.
Thank you.
Recommend. Page 11, sorry, I make sure. Page 11, and then paragraph 4. PG 4.
Are we okay working on more of this stuff at our workshop, so then the people that don't have to all be here? We move from the master plan for now to get further on our agenda, and then we'll be coming back to this document after, is that?
Yeah,
or
that's
did you have more, Daniel?
No, I mean,
at
that
this
was the
point?
end of my presentation. I
Okay.
just, like I said, I wanted to get your guys' general information. If you were okay with it, I was gonna ask for approval, but it sounds like we need to make some changes. So
Okay.
that's fine. We don't need to have it approved tonight by any means. We can come back next time and either approve both sections as a lot, if you're okay with those, or continue making changes and
Yep.
we
It's a
can circle
working
back around to it
document.
easily. Yeah, especially
So
for a while
Dan
now, we'll be at
has-
this, so.
I would just add that I do appreciate how concise this is.
Yeah.
It gets to the point without being overly wordy, and it's something we could get in the hands of people without it being a binder. So, thank you for that.
All right, so moving on to number 9 for staff reports.
If you have the list that was provided available to you, otherwise I'll just verbally go through it, kind of explain what I see happening, give you some options, just have a basic discussion. Some things, we'll need to talk, will need to be brought back, but we'll just go through it item by item, relatively quick. It shouldn't be a big deal. First item, the bench at the entrance trail, I would recommend replacing it. It's plastic coated metal, plastic's peeling off, legs are bent. Costs typically $300 to $500. Something like that, that's maintenance. That's not a new feature. I'm approved to spend, up to $1,000 for things like this. Of course, I'd talk to Administrator Chansky about it. I don't see an issue there. Any questions? Okay,
It's not fixable.
I won't recommend it.
It's really been up, yeah.
It's
Like
bad.
someone
it's
crashed into it with a car. And
Probably
to
a
bend that metal
snowplow.
like that?
it's time to.
Is my suspicion.
Yeah.
The second item, the dog poop stations, now, we already have existing signs in this park that, you know, they're little pick up after your own animal, blah, blah, blah. We have them here, we have them down by the swimming beach. That could be, you know, an option, because it is fair to expect a dog owner to do that. You know, that'd be one option. And the signs, we have them on hand, so it won't be a new purchase. It'd just be putting them out.
But does it
ahead.
have a little thing that
No,
you distribute the bags?
that's just a sign.
Okay.
To go to the dispensers that have little bags, I think you're talking 60 to $100.
How much?
$60 to $100 roughly. I mean, I didn't pick out a specific model, but that range should cover it. You know, and then the other discussion, you know, I thought is, we provide them at one site. Do you want to expand it, provide them to them all, have consistency? If you go the garbage can, dispenser, combos, those are, you're talking about $500 a station. And then as far as time, you know, the more sites there are, the more efficient it'll be for us, you know, cleaning up after them, because we're in the vehicle making a loop. I would estimate 20 minutes to 45 minutes, you know, a week. Just, I can't imagine they'd be overflowing every week. That's just an estimate. Could be done. I think it'd probably warrant a bigger discussion, because if you go the big dispenser routes, now you're talking, you know, many sites up to $3,000. If you're just talking the bags at every site, you're talking $360. So, questions?
What would be easier for your department?
I don't see it being, you know, obviously not doing it would be
Except
the easiest.
you still got to take care of the stuff in the grass when you're mowing and stuff, right? I'm assuming you don't just run it over and spread it all over.
To be honest, I mean,
Or isn't there really that much?
there's probably a little bit,
It seems
but
like responsible pet owners, we can have their own stuff.
let's put it this way. I don't recall ever getting a complaint, there's dog poop out here, go
So I
clean it
don't
up.
think-
What's the sign say? Pick up after your dog? Yeah, that's,
It's the law.
yeah,
Would we put
yeah,
a sign like we
Yeah.
have here?
Yeah,
that
that's-
we already have.
yeah.
See you spending that money.
Well,
And pop, yeah.
yeah.
It's up for
So basically, if you'd want to come back to the discussion, you know, give me, I don't need direction at this point, just kind of a verbal consensus of which way to go on that.
How?
from each, yeah.
I recommend just the signs to start.
Me too.
If there's another issue, then we can
Okay.
deal with that. To start.
Start with the sign.
Signs? Okay.
Diana's.
And there is a garbage there already, isn't there? Or wasn't there a garbage? I don't
I
remember.
don't believe so.
Oh, add a garbage can by the mailbox with the maps. Yeah, there wasn't even a garbage can there.
Do we need to put a motion on the table?
As long as it's just the sign that you've already purchased, right?
Yeah.
We already have it purchased. There's no need for a motion as long as it's just a sign. If you were gonna spend extra money, I might want a motion, but
Yeah. Another thing is, add a garbage can, by the mailbox. Couple options there. If you're familiar with the garbage cans in our park, those things are like $500 a piece. Second option would be steal one from the park, relocate it out there. We could probably take the garbage can from this small pavilion. It's consistently a quarter full outside of big events, but I probably won't recommend that route. Something like that to, you know, that'd probably be a motion to make the purchase. And I'd also, well, I'd want to discuss the
There
budget.
is a garbage can there though.
At the Winter Trail parking lot, I do not believe there is.
Nope.
Okay.
So,
Do we have them at other?
Do you have any extras anywhere?
we don't. I mean, I've,
General rule, we don't have them at trailheads. Or is that the only?
we've never had one there. Our extra cans from this park have been redistributed. Like, we took one, we put it at the fishing pier. There wasn't one there, we didn't have to purchase it. I feel we're probably at the minimum here. I mean, we have 2 at the big pavilion, 1 here, 1 at the ball field.
Yeah.
I don't want to go any
Yeah, we
less
don't
than
really
that.
cut any from there.
I mean, I picked up like a water bottle and a pop can and a couple other things that were just thrown. So I think it deserves to have.
places that maybe we need? We have them at the beach.
We do not. We have.
Yeah, there was one
The
there.
beach is kind of, it has its own garbage can because a truck just goes by, picks it up. Most of the others,
Golf course has
yes, no.
others. So I would say each of our locations should probably have a sign and garbage, at least a place for,
Yeah.
we're gonna standardize.
Well, once the expansion opens up, you're gonna need more garbage cans, I'm assuming.
That would be appropriate.
Yeah.
I'll address that further down the road, because we're getting close. I'll just kind of update everyone on what my plan is right now, and then we can discuss. So, Daniel, should we get a motion to purchase a new garbage can? Or-
So all right, I just want to clarify something. So this is a normal garbage can. We're not getting like a fancy one that's going to be rotted into the ground or anything, right?
Well, it's comparable to what we already have.
Okay, it's what we have right now.
It's expanded metal,
Okay.
covered in like plastic, and then you have a plastic lid on it.
Gotcha.
The reason they make them that way, wind doesn't blow them over, tip them over. They're too heavy that most people aren't gonna steal them or lift them over their head and bash things. That's why they cost that much.
Gotcha.
They
Okay,
cost
so
more than they should, but it's the way it is.
what's that cost come in roughly, do you think?
$500.
Okay,
I
that's
mean,
not that big.
I could get a specific one and bring the specific, if that's the direction I should go, I can get a specific so you can see the.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So if we're going to buy one and it's just a $500 purchase and we're just putting it on the trail, it's probably okay with a motion. If we're going to talk about multiples, that should probably come back at the next meeting as an individual item.
Let's do that, let's do that, just.
Do that.
Because I'll do, what do you call it, a survey of what we have.
Yeah.
And then I'll make a recommendation of,
Maybe get
to meet what,
Okay.
yeah.
There's usually a price point break. So if you gotta buy them anyway, don't buy one and then go buy
Yep.
3
Yeah.
more later.
I will look at every place and come up with something.
Okay, we'll bring it back at the next meeting then.
Because I want to say the Sad Park, probably doesn't have one. If my memory serves
The
me
which one?
correctly. The little park on Breeze Point Drive.
Point Drive Park, man.
Right. I thought that's what you meant. We just saw it.
Okay, so we'll put an item together for the next
Yeah,
agenda then.
Investigate.
You think you have the time for that by the next
Yep,
agenda?
that'll be no
Okay.
problem.
All right, we'll put that together and we'll get on the next agenda.
Next bullet point was where the trail crosses, arrow, that's no problem. That's maintenance, you know. Clean it up. We do have directional signs. If they fell off, you replace them. It's like a street sign when it gets damaged. We'll do that. I'm thinking August, might be September. Clean up around signs, that's no problem, same timeline.
Well, wait, so we noticed that when we were at the the dock, the boat launch, that the trees are growing over the signs towards the lake. So maybe at the same time you do.
That would just be normal maintenance
Oh,
stuff.
normal, okay.
We can do that. Yep. And typically when I have, normal maintenance items, somebody notices, brings it up in a meeting like this, we work it in. It's the appropriate way to do it. I'll just make a note. The no smoking, no alcohol signs, Bob's, I think he started them this week. He should be done. He tried to post them around entrances to every park. Beach, Sad Park here, both parking lots at the disc golf courses. They came in last week. I believe those signs do have enough room for a QR code to fit. Something I didn't have time to look at, and honestly, I don't really know how to make it work, would be establishing a QR code, make them functional, like connecting it to the website. Correct.
Yep.
There
plenty
should be
of-
room there.
Plenty of room.
Yep.
Yeah, we could.
Just saw them today.
more of a office.
Yep. Well, it'd be an unknown cost. It's something we need to investigate.
Yeah, I can develop something like that. I will say just off the cuff, I've done QR codes before. They're not that expensive to do. It's mostly just gonna be the cost of the stickers and printing and stuff like that. We just haven't actually gotten down, because we've been very busy, to I haven't gotten time to sit down and really be like, what am I doing with the website here? and like trying to really figure it out. That'll take me a little bit of time, but it is on the list. We just haven't gotten to it yet.
Just discussed it as a possibility.
Yep, we won't forget about it, because further on, a lot of these things tied together that I think a bigger solution would be appropriate. So, and like, the next item was add a larger sign with the name of the park. Big signs cost money, quite a bit of money. I didn't investigate the cost of that because I'm gonna kind of address all these sign questions at the same time. Update the current map, correct distances, show how it connects to the disc golf course, and those possibilities. In my opinion, recommendation, I think it would be a good time to look at updating all the park signs. We have we kind of have a hodgepodge. We have wooden ones, we have steel ones. The wooden ones are probably towards their last painting. We painted them. They're falling off, they're rotten in places. They're wood and then they're sand blasted, so they kind of look like washwood. They're more here. Outside parks, like they have just metal high reflectivity signs. Those were purchased and installed because they're cost effective and durable, not very good looking. I think this would be a good opportunity instead of just throwing signs, kind of establish a standard. Like we have a standard look. It would say the specific site, have your standard rules, and then have your site-specific rules for each part. I think this would be a good way to kill a bunch of birds with one stone.
Especially, council talked about, once the cannabis ordinance gets passed, what they're gonna do, they're gonna have to have some signs up, so that would be a good time to get all that looked at.
And that, in my experience, has been why we've gone recently, the metal sign, because we knew things were changing.
Yeah.
Things were growing, this was happening, we just need something for here. And that would be a good discussion too, is you wanna be real firm on what you want on there, because when you spend money on a sign that looks good, makes everyone feel proud, it's there for a while. And they're not like those wood signs we have around here, those were not, Diane would probably know better than me, but we priced them a few years ago and it was nearly $1,000 a piece. So, that'd kind of be, and while you're talking about, the big signs like that, I think that'd be a great time to update all our maps. Like, get a consistent, something that's consistent, consistent format, correct information, changes you guys all want. The discourse, for example, there's finally plots to actually make a map around. There's waypoints to do that. There's things established. That would be a general recommendation. And that's actually big, that's not a trivial project, getting everybody to agree on what to put on a sign. It would be a great winter project, because
Not only that, we have to figure out what name, so Sad Park, Mini Park, Winter Trail, or is it Four Seasons Park? Four Seasons Park is what's on the map, but
Right.
someone called it Winter Trail, I'm like, where's that one? I don't know. So we need to establish our park names.
Where the parking lot is.
Yeah, we need to
Yeah.
really decide what we want them to be called.
yeah.
So
I
that
would-
should be like I think that's just I don't know if that should be part of a workshop or,
Actually, that was something we were going to talk about today, at least a little bit, because our parks' names are in this plan right here. So that was actually something we were going to talk about a little bit in the workshop, and I figured we could work that, and then we could circle back around
Yeah,
based upon what happens there, Joe.
Yep, and that would be, that'd be something you're gonna have a budget for, because it'll be significant. To make a nice map, like not something that looks, like I made it. I can do something on the computer, but it won't look good. It'd work, but you wouldn't be proud of it, people, so I think that would be, this is a good opportunity to, and I couldn't even tell you the budget amount. I'd have to do some investigating. Daniel, that's kind of out of my bailiwick, working with, probably use engineers some and stuff like that, but I think it's worthwhile for both of us to kind of crunch a little numbers on it and report back at some point. Probably whenever we get the information consolidated. That might be 2 meetings out, or I don't know.
Yeah, I will say updating the maps is actually, it's kind of a good time right now because the maps are included in the master plan anyways. And we have some in here. They are old,
Yep.
and they're not standardized like you said. We probably should.
Right, we
them.
have a nice, we have a new
Looks like we literally
website,
just went through with a marker here and just.
tying all that stuff into QR codes, making everything a good experience. I think this is a great time to do it. Same deal with the last bullet as far as the cross-country, skiing, biking, stuff like that. I think that'd be, you know, those maps would be updated. That'd be a good time to have those discussions. Anything, questions on that? Next, I'll go to disc golf course update, or
Yep.
we all good? Okay. Disc golf course update. Most of our trees are taken care of that, you know, are dangerous along the fairways where the tops were snapped off, they were leaning. Most of that damage happened the first snowfall last winter. It was fairly significant. It was a couple, 3 or 4 days of cutting for 2 guys anyway, more than I expected. Bases are installed. I think we should have almost all the bases installed. The last 2 we were working on are mounted on rocks. So the basket's kind of like on a rock. That should be done today. The grass was mowed, starter fertilizer applied. If anyone, you know, the thought there is when grass grows, however tall it is, the roots are equally as deep. The coverage we had with our grass is kind of sporadic. So when you hit it with starter fertilizer and you cut it, now you cut grass this much, providing with the roots like this, now it's this height, it's gonna try and replace that greenery you cut off so it fills in the gaps, and it seems to be working great. It's filling in well. It's always worked for me in the past. Hole 1, T-pad, we had to adjust that for whatever reason. When we put the form down, it was kind of pointing into the woods and the basket was over here. That worked out well. Hole 5 was adjusted. Essentially what we did is from the target on 4, we slid to the east and moved the old T-pad. Thankfully it did not break. I was concerned it would. And established a new fairway that basically came up directly behind hole 6, kind of on a nice little hill. The debris that was generated from creating that new fairway was placed in the old fairway. The old fairway is gonna be, existing rocks we have, we're gonna kind of close it off, so it's pretty obvious, don't go that way. Later in winter, we'll get rid of that debris that's sitting in the fairway. If we have time, if everything works out, or not late winter, early winter when the ground freezes, but there's not a ton of snow. Driving around with the skid steer, try to keep it as low as we can. And then, so that, I think that turned out pretty good. I think it met the direction we were given. The distances, hole numbers are painted on all the T-pads. I think that finished up yesterday or a day or 2 ago. Basic directional signs, very basic. They're diagonal and 1 arrow on them. Depending which way you mount them to a tree, they'll point you go this way so people can go in a circle without getting lost. Those have not arrived. They'll be put up as soon as we get them. Yeah, and then, like I said, the no alcohol, no smoking signs, they've been placed all other parks. So, any questions on staff report? Go ahead.
The parking lot? Where's that stand?
Probably pretty close to being done next week. Oh, well, the council directed to finish the lot at 0.5 acres. Well, the staked out area that's present, finish that. What we will be doing is cutting ditches basically around it, so it's not just all flat. That will also keep cars from, there's gonna be distinct edge. The parking lot itself, there's plenty of boulders there to perform barrier. That'll do two things. That'll keep cars in it, and also it should keep golf carts, ATVs from coming into the parking lot and trying to go down in there. A ditch needs to be formed in front of it, and then extended further down, White Overlook, and then turf restoration, seed it, straw it. That's been my biggest concern, because it hasn't washed, everything's held up great, but you never know with that kind of stuff. Dirt work, the shaping will be done most likely next week, as long as I don't get any surprises. Graveling, possibly next week into the following week. And then I think we'll be at the point where we're gonna pretty much pull the plug out there for the year, where we have to shift our priorities to sewer work and not too long getting ready for winter. So,
Will it be open then?
should be, yeah. Yeah, it should be, the baskets will be up.
They're up now. I walked the expansion today, they're up now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Most of them. I don't know if the guys they were working on just a couple more. I think their directional signs will be needed. People will be able to play it, but without the directional signs, that's kind of, they'll have to figure it out as they go, which isn't hard because the T-pads are numbered, but we experienced similar problems initially with the old course, because we weren't sure how people would walk, and eventually we worked it out.
So everything's renumbered?
What's that?
Like some of those holes are going to be renumbered?
Not this year. We
No.
won't have time.
Okay.
That could be a discussion in winter or something.
Joe, you didn't mention any of the coverage for the ditch area from White Overlook. That's still planning on being planted?
Oh, that would be, thank you for that, Michael. The council did direct us to put barrier vegetation, which is kind of vague. Shrubs, trees, that would be, is left open to interpretation. My recommendation would be, if you do shrubs, something small, visibility is maintained, which is, parking lots, that can be a good thing. If your goal is to make it more discreet, so it's less visible, I'd probably recommend some type of tree. I don't know how many at this point. They just told me to do it. Any discussion here as far as should we have something lower to maintain visibility or more discreet?
My opinion, you should, if a police officer's driving by, you can look and see the parking lot, my opinion. 'Cause That'll be a gathering place for kids. They got cars.
Bill, that is generally the course you see with parking lots, is you want some screenage, but you don't want them hidden.
Right.
Kind of like how Winter Trail is, like, you don't even know it's there, but it's not, it's.
I would second what Mr. Toff said. Thank you for bringing that up.
Correct, and that was my direction I was gonna go with, but I just wanted to, present the options so we can.
It's only a couple days ago.
Yeah, so, all right, I will work on that. We'll figure something out. I'm thinking of whatever I plant, it'll probably be right before freeze up, September, October, so we can get away from, watering it a ton. Hopefully we can water a little bit in spring, and it takes, so we don't have to water it all season. And that's probably the direction I'll go, is something hardy, low maintenance. So that looks pleasing. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you. Only other thing I wanted to note, obviously we are currently headed into budget season right now. Well, we're actually in budget season, we're not headed into it, but budget stuff is going on. Your guys' request for the additional money for your budget did go through. It's in the current standing budget as just a part of it. Next budget workshop is August 15th, I believe, which is next Tuesday, if I'm remembering correctly, but it is next week. So if somebody wanted to, if anybody wants to come by, they're more than welcome to come in and see what's going on with that. We'll all be there. So that was the last item I had for here. If we wanted to move on to committee reports, unless Joe had something.
Yeah, Dan, I think it'd probably be advisable to get the sign map stuff in the budget, like, and I don't have a number for you. I couldn't tell you where to start, but like if we don't get it in the budget this year, we wouldn't have some money to spend, money to make it happen next year. And I think it's needed. Well, that's obviously when you guys would like to see that happen, but if it's next year, it needs to be brought to the forefront. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, probably. You think it's gonna be quite expensive, isn't it?
Do we need to make a motion to start receiving quotes or getting some cost estimates? And we could always figure out the wording later, but do we?
At this point, what I'm gonna say is let's grab a motion to direct staff to look into it and start doing stuff, because this is gonna be a recommendation from you guys to council if we proceed with this immediately. Joe and I are gonna need to talk to David like tomorrow morning, first thing, to make sure that we get this in there if we're gonna add this item, because we need to get the packet out like ASAP for August 15th, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll go ahead and make a motion to ask staff to
research those
research and
signs.
start
yeah,
collecting
collecting
the
the-
costs for
Add it in,
updating all
yeah.
of our signs, having consistency
add it into the budget.
added to the budget.
Okay, there we go.
I'll second.
And maps too, okay.
And maps.
Okay.
All those, any discussion further?
Who was second?
Diane? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay.
Committee member reports?
Yes.
Could I make a comment? Joe, it sounds like you have put in a lot of work on this. We really appreciate it. You keep
Yeah.
busy with it, and all our stuff looks good. Thank you.
All right, number 10, committee member reports. This would be a good time to
Yeah.
visit tell us about the Night to Unite.
Well, I think it went really well considering the weather.
Yes, I saw that.
And this year, we had music. Kevin Wright was the guitar player. He was great.
Yeah, he was. He
Yeah.
was really great.
I got a lot of comments from people that's what made it. And actually, Angel, our mayor, went to Pequot to see their Night to Unite, or their, I don't know what they call it, but she said ours was actually better because people really liked the music. The music is what made it. They hung around, I thought there were a lot more older couples, not just young families there. It was really nice. We had root beer floats, we had giveaways, face painting, and they were all that was all volunteer. The face painting and volunteers to do the root beer floats. I think people had a really nice time. It put together pretty fast, Next year, I think we need somewhat of a budget because I personally paid for the music, and I know Angel paid for the root beer floats.
Okay.
And, so it would be really,
Well, I did, I spoke with David Spizo directly too, and he said his exact words are he'd be absolutely happy to work with us on the menu items and things like that to alter it. It was just too short of notice.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think next time, as long as we have that coming up in advance, he's happy to order whatever, if we're wanting to alter that. those things as well.
Yeah, I think.
Maybe include the floats or, you know.
Yeah.
like, Yeah.
I think we could have, if we would have had more time, we could have reached out to more businesses and asked for donations, and I don't know how that works, you know,
I think
with this kind of.
Chief Sandell usually heads that up, doesn't he, Joe? So maybe working with him.
Yeah.
or-
One of the things about this event specifically is, you know, we were asked to help. And so we had we had a lot of things planned, and most of them were shot down. That's okay. But there's no process. Like, really, what are we, you know, how do we put our energy into this? There should be more of a process when events are happening
Yeah, it was a last minute.
yeah, yeah. And I know that the mayor had said that she wants to present to the council a process for any kind of event, that there is a consistent process. So I think that'd be a really good idea. But I think the event went really well considering the weather. I mean, we were down to the wire there on rain and, yeah.
Yeah. From the perspective of the Parks Committee, you know, I think it would probably be appropriate to form like a subcommittee to work with Chief Sandell and the police department to make sure, since it is kind of a public safety driven event, to make sure that his vision is kind of laid out, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so the event was very good. By my count, we must have had over 100 people there because we gave away over 100 hot dogs, or brats, I guess, and very few people came for seconds. So it was very large in that capacity. I will say, participation in the event would of course be a council directive. So if there's going to be a policy or anything put in place in that manner, we would have to consider it as staff, maybe draft it up. Council would have to talk about whether or not that is something to do. I will also say it does require, in this case, Chief Sandell's consent. I do not know 100% where his consent stands, so we'll need to kind of circle back around on that and chat with him and see what he thinks. It's possibly something we could talk about next year. I can't give you any promises on anything at this point, though, just because I'm not 100% sure.
What I'd say, Daniel, is we did have actually, I think, a family, maybe a couple gals that did volunteer for Sandell pre-COVID, that helped out and did a lot of organization. And this was, like I say, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And so that was just individuals reaching out to Chief Sandell, and he appreciated the assistance. So if individuals of this group wanted to do that, I think that would be something that individuals could be done without actually forming an official subcommittee. But it sounds like the mayor might have some ideas about actually doing something like that. So that's where it kind of gets a little muddy of what that does look like. But I'd say if you wanted to reach out to Chief Sandell on your own and say, as an individual, you can assist. But I think it's also the mayor's maybe an ambition to help fund some, so it's not just all donation driven, while we are appreciative of all the businesses that have donated in the past, but there could be something there too. So it's two different levels that you could be looking at.
I know she had talked about like starting a planning, and we know Sandell is the one who heads it up, so we have to follow whatever he wants, but start planning in March. However it works, whether the Park and Rec is involved or if it is individuals. But she was going to present, from what I understand, that it start in March.
Have more time.
Yeah.
So we were talking about this rolling calendar for our agendas. So now this should get put into our March agenda, whether, and we'll decide then whether we're going to be the people involved or not. But I think there should be some consistency in all events that we do, not just, the butterfly, all the different, and maybe some new, we were talking about events for the community. And so maybe it's not just a subcommittee of Park and Rec, but of all the, whoever wants to be on any of the, who wants to be helping from all the areas to pull together events. So there's some consistency and some input from all the areas.
That's not a Parks and Rec function to do that.
That's why I'm wondering, if it's not a Park and Recs function, maybe it's a group that's pulled from all of the committees or council, whoever wants to be part of event planning, who has an interest in it.
Well, and Breezy's kind of unique because a lot of communities around here would be driven by the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
Who coordinates that, Pequot or Nisswa or Pine River. So, you know, having be that we're kind of in the middle of part of Pequot, but kind of our own, it just makes it very different.
Kind of sounds like you want to consider doing something that's a community gathering thing, maybe at a different time and not part of the police night to unite where they're focusing on public safety. Maybe we want to do something, some other kind of community fest.
Exactly.
There used to be a summer fest. I don't know if anybody was here then. There was summer fest that was kind of centered at the resort because there was sandcastle contests and all kinds of stuff going on. Kind of like Winterfest maybe, but in the summer that the city might, you know, if we want to consider doing that as a community building thing or, you know, just
I think
beyond
there's
the
definitely a
public
need
safety.
for it. And we were talking, you know, it's the garden could have things centered around that. If and when that happens, so just some kinds of, you know, community gathering events that aren't so specific to, you know, more general.
But see, we don't have like the choke cherry thing, and we don't have
Yeah,
breakfast at the Legion here on Sundays. I mean, if
We
we
have a
wanted to
resort.
build something,
yeah. So,
It sounds
we
like,
could look at that.
you know, you should all develop a community action team and not Parks and Rec team.
Right.
right, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. I don't think
Right,
it's.
that is a whole different,
You know, I think it's
You've
kind
got
of-
Women's Club, you've got the PLCC.
right.
You've
Conservation
got,
Club does a
You know,
lot.
business is kind of limited, but there are some basic groups that might get behind something like that. It might be worth trying some year.
I mean, based on just the mayor's jumping in and helping uplift the butterfly, I guess that was improved a lot, and people have commented to me on what a great event that was. But she jumped in at the last, you know, kind of she wants to bring the events up a little bit, like, and then make them a little broader, and then maybe add something else. I think that's the ambition, and maybe we need to look at something, it's not really Park and Rec, you
Yeah.
know?
Right.
But we jumped in and helped when we were asked, and then so people who are interested,
And
Also,
I've done those things in the past too, and I think Butterfly has always been well done and well received over the history of our city. We are known for that, but
Also, I think maybe consider it, as far as the Night to Unite, that's kind of a police thing. Let them, you help, but that's their deal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Don't step in toes.
Yeah.
I know
Try to
Brian
run the
didn't want the
thing.
focus taken off of the public safety aspect. He didn't want it to be
Right.
overshadowed by other things.
Exactly.
okay. Any other
and the
committee?
grill worked really well.
Good.
So we have that for other
We have a grill
events
now.
Yes, we do. I will say just one thing very quickly, and this isn't to poo-poo on anyone or start anything. The butterfly release does belong to the cemetery commission.
Oh, yeah.
Those old ladies are very attached to that event.
Careful of
And
that.
yeah,
Careful how you say that.
I'm sure they will forgive me, but it is their event. And I'm sure they would be more than happy to accept help, but they've made it pretty clear that they very much care about that event. So I don't think that's going to be one that they would be very comfortable giving to the Parks and Recs committee or moving around very much.
I don't feel we should,
No, we don't want any of them.
should be taking on any of that.
We don't want any of
Yeah.
them. We just jumped in, but that's why I'm saying, let's develop another way to make it happen.
Yeah.
And coordinate, be coordination between these events, because they are still the city's reflected events, and we're responsible for
I think maybe that's a good thing to bring to
Consistency
city
and-
council then too. I mean, come
absolutely.
to
Yep.
a meeting and present that idea. So they can
And
hear.
it would be nice if we were known as that we are a group that would jump in and help if
support.
someone like the cemetery commission is going to put on the butterfly thing or, the safety department, whatever.
And a staff member.
Right, yeah,
You
exactly.
have to coordinate together,
Yeah.
I kind of agree, though, with you, that we shouldn't be really a part of.
We can help
Help,
any way they
sure.
want, but I
Yeah.
don't want to take over anything. It's not our,
No,
we'll make the park nice and clean or,
Right.
Be there to
promote
support.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other reports? All right, it is officially 6:27. Can we make a motion to adjourn to workshop? And actually, can we take a break?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Yeah, we can take a 5-minute break if you want. Yeah.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
All right, adjourned.